Hey there, YouTube friends. Today, I wanted to do a little fiber video. I've been working on and off on a project here that I was hoping to be able to come to conclusion, but I have run across a problem. So when I was in Florida earlier this year, I had time as I was sitting around caring for my dad in between things or whatever. I decided I was going to knit a scarf. This was something that was going to be for a friend of mine, and it's alpaca. Okay, it is a very basic, very plain. Uh, it's a garter stitch, I believe. It's just knit front and back, knit back and forth. So it creates kind of like a rib. It's a little stretchy, which is nice for alpaca because alpaca doesn't have very good spring retention to it. It's more of a drapey type fiber rather than something that has good spring to it like a sheep's wool would. So anyway, this scarf, just a long rectangle, was supposed to be 54 inches. I had a pretty good size ball of yarn that I had previously purchased from the lady that I had learned how to spin from years ago. And this is a replica of a scarf that I did for my husband that is a great scarf. And people look at it and they're like, oh my God, it's wonderful. I'd like to have one like that. So this friend of ours had said that he wanted one. So I had this ball, and he's a bigger man. So he found a scarf that he had that he liked, and he measured it out to be about 54 inches, which the one I did for my husband was 48 inches. So what is that, like 6 inches longer? Okay. Well, when I did this scarf, for whatever reason, yarns can all be kind of different a little bit. Obviously the diameter, Arian or lace or bulky, all those things play into how things stitch up and all of that, how much yarn you're going to ultimately need. This was pretty close to what I originally had. So I was like, I should be able to I'm pretty sure I should be able to get 48 inches, if not really, close to that 54. So I started knitting it up, and lo and behold, I came up short. I only was 44 inches. Now, could I stretch it a lot, block it? I probably could, but that kind of defeats the purpose of having a tightly knit, warm garment, right? So my thought was, well, I had some alpaca and I was going to spin it, and I was gonna make like an end cap, if you will. So if you can kind of see, I have the original down here. It's sort of I would call it like a cocoa brown. Fawn is what they call it, and then this is a darker brown up here. So my thought was I was going to do like a cap on the end on both sides, and two-tone, kind of a patch sort of thing. And I've seen things similar to that. People will do stripes and what have you. You can do all kinds of stuff and it looks fine, okay? But my issue with this is because the way I wanted to have it worn, or it should be worn, is it would kind of like lay, and then you wrap it around twice, and then it would lay, this way. Well, you need to have enough of a tail. You don't want it like, ending up here. You needed to have it end a little bit further down so it can get tucked into a coat or something like that. And the issue, we can show this, okay? So you should see, the bottom one is the original, right? And then this is what I spun on the top. They're different diameters, for sure. That will make a difference, obviously, in how it knits up, but not horrible, okay? But what the big kicker is with this is the grist. The grist is different, okay? So if you've never heard of grist is important, and grist can be the bane, I think, of us spinners and knitters' lives. If you have never read this book, seen this book as a spinner, this is a great book. I wish I had had this years ago. I had some, like, oh, how to spin, right? But there is so much more. It's actually super intimidating how much more there is in the fiber world. And this book is great. I mean, this book literally takes you from very beginning to the end and every little detail in between. And Alden Amos has a really nice, I think, writing style. He's kind of got some wit and some humor, which is functionally like a manual, a how-to book, right? But it's fun to read. It's not, I mean, I don't know, maybe you wouldn't like, how-to type books, you're into novels or whatever, but I like these kinds of books. And his writing style, I think, is really, really nice. So on page 88, he gets into a section here of grist, and you see the little scales there. And he says it's one of the universal factors that are shared by all yarns, whether bulky, heavy, coarse, extra fine, high twist, low twist, no twist, 4-ply, single, or an amazing novelty, yarn always has grist. Grist describes the relationship between yarn weight and yarn length. A little bit further back in the book, he has, like when you look up the glossary type stuff, he describes it as it's the yarn's linear density that is the length to weight relationship stated as a numerical value. Okay, so what does that mean for my project here? Basically, this yarn is heavier than this yarn. That's what it means. Okay, so these were spun by two different people. This one by my teacher, this one by me. This is a finer, thinner yarn. This is a thicker yarn. But I think, I don't know for sure, that when I spun my yarn, I probably spun it denser. I spun it, with more fiber because I have a bigger piece of yarn, but I probably spun it more densely packed than what my teacher had did. Hers is, I think, a little bit more woolen, and mine's maybe a little bit more worsted. And so the overall effect on what I was thinking was going to be a cap on this scarf is it's like it feels, this is like soft, right? This feels more rigid. Okay, it's not the feel that I was going for. I thought like, okay, well, maybe I could kind of get away with it, but the way that I wanted this thing to have as a cap where it would be crossed over, in front of, I felt like the ends of it, because the center was so soft that it would actually like start to pull on it, and that's not how you really want, your scarf should kind of be like one unit, right? And I was thinking I'd be able to get away with it by spinning up something and doing this as a way to lengthen it, because I'm short 10 inches, which is not a ton, but it's enough. And if I did 5 inches on each side to be able to make it to the full 54 inches that I needed, I think it would just be too much weight. That would be kind of like tugging. And so that's not going to work. So what's going to end up happening is I'm going to frog this. Frogging is basically you take it off the needles and you just start pulling stitches. Do it carefully. Don't do it, recklessly, because you need to make sure, I need to be able to catch my original stitches. And so you do want to make sure, because sometimes as you're pulling the yarn, it'll almost like catch on itself. It's not like it's been knitted wrong, but the fibers will kind of catch on themselves, and you can end up creating like a little bit of a snag or whatever. So when you start frogging it, you start pulling it out, just, be patient and start pulling it out gently, so that you can capture, well, let's just do it, right? So that you can capture, switch glasses, get to that bifocal. So what I want to do is just very, very carefully kind of allow it to come out. And I think I only knit about 8 stitches, or I'm not 8 stitches, 8 rows. That was 2. Here we're on to 3. Should be 4. And I know this is like for somebody who's a newer knitter, and even for me, I still get like very like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? Should be 5. And just as an aside, see how when I pulled it off and like they talk about the stitch, you know, taking a set and these different things, there's proof right there. That has only been in that scarf knitted like that for maybe 2 days. Getting close. I don't know, where am I at? 6 or 5? I think that's 7. Just be careful. I always find that should be, I think, yeah. So you can kind of see it, the difference between the colors and the thickness. So this is what I want. So I need to start to try and capture my my stitches, but I can't talk and do that at the same time. So anyway, this is an issue. You know, you have a denser yarn, and a lighter, less dense yarn. Your grist is different, and so when you're dealing with any kind of a knitted project, or I guess crocheted as well, is that you need to make sure that your weights and stuff match up for whatever it is that you're trying to do. Sometimes, you know, we make errors. We don't buy enough. I mean, like people will buy a lot of yarn because they're like, oh, you need to make sure it's the same dye lot. Well, yeah, you do. If it's commercial, generally, you know, those machines pull and tuck and, you know, whatever, and they make it so that it's pretty much the same consistent yarn, no matter when the thing is spun. The dye colors might be different, but for hand spinners, you know, I could have a day today that I spin one way and then tomorrow I spin a different way, or I have a different wheel that I'm spinning on. And that's a thing too. I was not spinning on my teacher's original wheel. So, you know, it's going to be a different product. So anyway, that's something for you guys to think about when you're talking about looking at hand spinning. How much to buy sometimes is, you know, if you think like, oh, I'm just going to do a scarf, or I'm going to do you know, a project that you think you have enough. If you're following a pattern, it'll tell you you need 250 yards. And you know that ball of yarn has over 250 yards, you're probably fine. But if you don't know, buy more than you need, because sure as anything, you're going to find out, oops, I need more. So anyway, I hope that was helpful for you. And remember, you are the gold.